Are we still waiting to get started?
Gosh darn it. Did you start over?
You guys were on mute. We couldn't tell if you were started or not.
Oh. Okay, we just started. 4 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Give me to start over.
I can go ahead and continue.
Oh, okay.
Maybe just,
Well, nothing's on my record. No, nobody, you've been on mute.
maybe just recap.
So just for a recap, we have Mr. Mock and Mr. Ortiz are not here. They have another commitment. Nelson, Stiegelmeyer, Baker, Redmond, Wareham, Morris, all present. We passed the summary of minutes with Nelson making the motion and Baker seconding, unanimous on that. And then there was a continuance on item number 8 in the agenda. Since Mr. Mock is not here, we do not have an executive director's office report, and we are currently summarizing the division director report with Michael Cunningham.
I will continue, Michael Cunningham, Division Director. I'll continue on with my updates. Once again, Zach Trujillo was promoted to our Senior Environmental Protection Specialist position. Congratulations to Zach. For our Open Data Manager position, Eric Scott has been promoted to that. Eric's been with the division for 16 years as an EPS. You know, when we came in, we heard stories from the folks that have worked here oftentimes about how they had to type out reports on typewriters or how they didn't have email, which honestly doesn't, sounds okay sometimes. But we've seen a lot of changes in the time we've been here, and Eric has been integral to some of those changes. He's been involved in a lot of that. So we're incredibly excited to see him fill that role. Congratulations, Eric. So with some of this movement, we do have some more openings that we have to fill. We are going to have 3 vacancies for environmental protection specialist interns. We'll be looking to advertise those starting in May. Once we get past that and we get fully staffed back up, we will have 2 openings for our EPS 3 positions. One is for our bonding specialist, previously occupied by Zach. And then we have an open engineering space as well that was held by Tim Kazir, who of course just retired. So it's pretty dynamic right now. We've got a lot of changes, but it's an exciting time, and we'll keep the board posted as we move through that process. Also want to let the board know that the Active Minds program is going to have a retreat here in May. It's been a little while since we've had our last one, about 7 years, so we're long overdue on that. It's going to be a great opportunity for staff to get together. We'll go up to Estes Park and spend some time at the YMCA Center up there. Really just focusing on a lot of the things that we don't have time to do on the, with the day-to-day. So really focus our attention on those items that have been on our to-do list for a while. And I know Russ will provide an update to the board after that and talk about all the good things that staff worked on at that retreat. And my last update is I just want to let the board know that I will not be in attendance for the May hearing. I have to attend a week-long course at DU. Russ will be covering for me and will provide division updates during that hearing. And that concludes my updates.
Great, thank you. Congratulations to both of you on your promotions. I think that's a great wealth of knowledge to move into some of those roles. So, okay, so we have 2 items on the consent agenda. I don't know if either the staff people who have anything with those situations, if you have anything to note, or if we're okay just to, I think, approve the, make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Madam Chair, we're good to go.
We're good to go, okay. Bill.
Okay, Stiegelmeyer, motion to approve the consent agenda item A. Mike Langston Concrete.
How about B?
And consent agenda item B, Joseph Foster. Probably want the file numbers, don't you? Doesn't matter.
Got it.
In that motion.
It's fine. Nelson second.
I'll second.
Got Nelson seconding. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, the consent agenda passes. Moving along here to item number 5. Hunter, and I'm sorry, is it Ridley or Ridley?
It's Ridley.
Ridley, Hunter Ridley. Come on up for file number M-1981-020. This is a formal public hearing for Indian Springs Ranch LLP. Application for a second period of temporary cessation.
Thank you. Good morning. This is Hunter Ridley with the division. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'll be representing the division in this matter for the operator's request for a second consecutive term of temporary cessation. This is again for the Thorson Mine, permit number M-1981-020. It is located in Fremont County. This is a 110C construction materials site permitted for 9.8 acres, and their primary commodity is gypsum. A brief chronology: on February 19th, 2024, the operator requested a second term of temporary cessation. Temporary cessation 1, the first period, expired February 24th, 2022. Due to reporting errors and illness and death in the permittee's family, TC1 was not applied for. So TC2 will be retroactive to February 24th, 2022. On March 11th, 2024, the division provided notice of temporary cessation request to the Fremont County Commissioners and to the permittee pursuant to Rule 1.13.6, Parent 1 and Parent 3. And on March 19th, 2024, the division inspected the site and found no problems or violations and found the bond to be adequate at this time for current site disturbances. There are no outstanding corrective actions or unpaid civil penalties. And there is a history of 2 past violations for failure to submit an annual report from 1990 and 1991, but there is a timely submittal of all corrective actions since then. And therefore, the staff recommends that the board accept the operator's notice of a second consecutive 5-year term of temporary cessation, beginning retroactively to February 24th, 2022, and ending February 24th, 2027. I'm available for any clarifying questions.
Aside from, sorry, Nell Wareham Morris, just aside from kind of missing that initial second, you've been able to communicate with the
Yes.
operator. And
Yes, very
everything's kind of back
properly.
on track.
Yeah, I don't believe she's in attendance today, but she's back in better health, so she's been great throughout the whole process now.
And Nelson, the 2,500 is what they have in bond. That's enough to cover. So there's not much disturbance left.
There's approximately half an acre of disturbance. Earthwork and seeding is minimal and could be done by hand. So the bond has been assessed at previous inspections and found to be adequate.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other discussion or questions? Someone like to entertain a motion?
Sure. I'll make a motion. Nelson, make a motion for the to approve a second period of temporary cessation on file number M-1981-020.
Stiglmeyer, second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, we have approved the second period of temporary cessation ending February 24th, 2027 for file number M-1981-020. Thank you. And I guess you can stay up here because you have the next one, number 6. This is a formal public hearing, Hourglass Sands LLC, file number M-2006-007 for another second period of temporary cessation.
Again, this is Hunter Ridley speaking. This is a consideration for the operator's request for a second consecutive term of temporary cessation. This is for the Gemidosian Sand Mine. This is located in El Paso County. It is a 112C construction materials permitted for 299.78 acres, and their primary commodity is sand. A brief chronology is February 7th, 2024. The operator requested a second term of temporary cessation. The first term of temporary cessation expired on February 28th, 2024. On March 11, 2024, the division provided notice of temporary cessation request to El Paso County Commissioners, as well as the El Paso County Developmental Services Department and the permittee pursuant to Rule 1.13.6, Parent 1 and Parent 3. On March 21st, 2024, the division inspected the site and found no problems or violations and found the bond to be adequate at this time. There are no outstanding corrective actions or unpaid civil penalties and no past history of violations. All corrective actions have been submitted in a timely manner. Therefore, the staff recommends that the board accept the operator's notice of a second consecutive 5-year term of temporary cessation, which will begin February 28th, 2024 and end February 28th, 2029.
Questions?
I guess I have one. Is there actually a limit on the number of temporary cessations that are available to a specific permit, or is there?
Yes, so if the operator uses their first 5-year term of temporary cessation, if they continue on with the temporary cessation status for another 5 years, that's capped at 10 years, and which is the TC2. However, if they restart activity after TC1, their timeline gets restarted back to TC1 if they would like to go back into temporary cessation status, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, if you start up again, you just restart the clock.
Yeah.
That's correct, yeah. You weren't here for our rulemaking. But that was one of the major things, this is Russ meetings and stuff, but one of the things and stuff that we discussed, and actually I'll be discussing that and stuff in our discussion item today, and stuff is how that temporary cessation process works and that, but yeah, if they, even in the second temporary cessation, if they reactivate and they're in production and stuff and that for a certain amount of time and stuff, they can come back in and request another TC, and that starts that whole clock again. If they reach that 10-year max, then by action rule and stuff, they're required to start reclamation. And that's so and that's it, kind of the end of life of mine, if you will. And that, but that's part of the thing. If you can't get things done in a 10-year block, then it's time to reclaim.
Or you could reapply, or you would have to reapply for the permit, start over.
Correct. Yeah.
I mean, these are market forces or?
Always, yeah, always. And in particular, part of what was driving TC was like the uranium mines and that, and the cyclical nature of that industry, because it's 15, 20 years and stuff and up and down. But some areas of the state will get very, very busy and stuff with construction materials, and then they'll sit there for 7 or 8 years and stuff with no highway projects or anything else and stuff there. So that's the number one driver, if you will, for temporary cessation.
Yeah, it's part of it.
Now Wareham, I'll ask for a motion.
A motion to approve the second period of temporary cessation. I think I've got this file number right, M198185.
The one below, number 6.
What above it?
2006.
2006. This one right
Oh, I'm sorry. M2006-007. Motion to approve.
Okay, motion by Baker,
Second by Nelson.
discussion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, hearing none. Item number 6 passes. This is file number M2006-007. Hourglass Sands LLC, second period of temporary cessation approved through February 28th, 2029. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, number 7, Sunrise Mining LLC, M1981-185, Dustin. This is another temporary second period of temporary cessation.
Yes, this is Dustin Zappa with the
Oh, there
division.
you are. Okay. I was like, what?
Do I need to be sworn in?
You're fine.
This hearing is for the Mayday Mine, permit number M 1981-185, operated by Sunrise Mining LLC and located in La Plata County. This is a 112D permit, which includes 154.29 acres. This is an underground gold and silver mine. The existing bond amount of $137,448 is adequate. This hearing is for consideration of operator's request for a second consecutive term of temporary cessation. Chronology, August 29th, 2023. Division inspected the site and found no problems or violations. February 2nd, 2024. Operator requested second term of temporary cessation. TC1 expires May 1st, 2024. March 8, 2024. The division provided notice of temporary cessation request to La Plata County Commissioners pursuant to Rule 1.13.7, Parent 1. History of violations, there are none under the current operator. And staff recommends the board accept the operator's notice of a second consecutive 5-year term of temporary cessation beginning May 1st, 2024 and ending May 1st, 2029. That concludes the division's presentation.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions?
I'll remake my motion
Okay, motion by Baker,
to grant the second period of temporary cessation, file number M 1981-185.
seconds.
I have a question. Is the operator here today? They're asking for temporary cessation, but it sounds like they plan on taking mineral samples this summer. Does that fall under temporary cessation?
They could do, they have, this is Dustin Zappa with the division again. They have historic stockpiles in one of the mines, and they would be able to go and grab some small amount to sample the material, determining whether or not the mining would be lucrative.
And these piles are within the mine, or are they?
Yeah, they're just inside the portals and stuff stockpiled there. And the level of the activity doesn't raise up to the level of production.
Right,
And that to meet the requirements and stuff to be active.
okay, and it sounds like they have a plan if those test results turn out well, that they would re-engage this operation.
Yes, we do have a plan, and yes, we are here, and I just got the mute button turned off. And,
Can you introduce yourself really quickly, please?
all right, I'm Barbara Nielsen, and this is my husband, Jack, beside me.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, now Wareham again. So we were in the middle of a motion and then a question. So let's redo the motion. Mr. Baker,
You gotta read it.
you got to redo your motion.
Want me to repeat it?
Yes.
Okay. I move that we approve a second period of temporary cessation, file number M 1981-185.
Stiglmeyer, second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Hearing none. Number 7, file number M-1981-185, second period of temporary cessation for Sunrise Mining LLC to May 1st, 2029. Thank you for being here, and thank you to the operator for being here as well. We appreciate hearing from you. And thank you, Dustin.
Thank you.
as I mentioned, item number 8, the enforcement hearing has been continued. So now, item number 9, we're going to hear a presentation and approval of the Colorado Inactive Mine Reclamation Program and the grants presentation.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. It may take me a minute to get things here.
We can sign off. If we want to. We could sign off. Let's see, we've got to.
What? Yeah, I thought it was in here. My presentation had been loaded. Not finding-
Is it on the desktop? Let's say go to.
Well, we'll go with this. My apologies for that presentation. It's loaded in last Friday.
I haven't seen it, so.
Okay.
Jeff?
Yeah.
Isn't Amy signed in?
Yes.
So it might be on the other, I don't know, not the other screen. So.
If he signs in as him instead of,
Yeah, that should be available because it's on
Yeah.
D drives. That should
Okay.
be all of this. Not sure what happened to it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll just go with kind of a verbal discussion here. My apologies. I had a few good pictures, but we can cover this regardless. So. Do the final here. Let's pull this up. Okay.
Share screen.
I don't do this enough up here. So.
and Jeff, just for the record, so you're just sharing what's in our board packet.
I'm gonna share what's in your board packet,
Okay.
and that'll give me the ability to kind of look through it here. Can you help me share in Zoom? I just don't know Zoom that well. Struggling with this today.
That's okay.
One of those days. Yep.
Higher up with both of us right now.
Do you email that to me?
I don't think so. Nah,
Yeah.
I voted.
I didn't see it. I just wanted to be sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so are you there?
I am here. Go share screen.
I don't mind just keeping.
And there we go. Okay. Finally. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Jeff Graves. I'm the program director for Colorado's Inactive Mine Reclamation Program. I've also got my grant specialist, Fonzie Gasol, in the back over there, so she can answer any technical questions related to our grant. So this is our annual appearance before the board to present our grant application that goes to the mine or goes to the Office of Surface Mining Reclamation and Enforcement. Each year we receive approximately $3 million from OSM. These are non-competitive grants. So these are grant allocations that are based on taxes collected on coal production within the state that get redistributed to the state to actually work on abandoned mine land issues. So those AML issues that our program addresses are issues that had mining prior to 1977. So they're pre-law sites. That 1977 date reflects the passage of SMACRA. And so this funding is intended to address those issues that are considered pre-law or prior to the passage of SMACRA. So each year our project managers work in the field to develop projects, and those projects entail essentially safety closures related to both hard rock and coal related projects or sites. And so our project managers put together projects that then we package together. We submit to what's called our advisory council, which is a number of stakeholders we have that review those projects in advance of our presentation here before you with our final grant application. And so they help us to rank those projects based on a number of different considerations, including project size, project cost, project location, future land use associated with the site that we're working on, and a number of other factors to help us rank those projects that we've put together over the course of the year. And then based on that ranking, and then on our project manager's availability for actually executing the projects, we put those into our final grant that we present to you. And so as part of our grant process, or actually part of our reclamation plan that OSM has approved, we have to submit our grant to the board for final approval before we can submit that to OSM to hopefully receive those funds by the beginning of our fiscal year in July. So that's why typically we appear before you in April with the hopes of getting approval and then submission of our grant by the end of April, allowing OSM 60 days to review that grant and then provide final approval and funding by the beginning of July. So we're here before you with our 2024 grant request. You'll notice on here down at the bottom, our total grant request of, that should be 24, of $2,8,229,000. That I have an asterisk on there because OSM was yet to provide us what that funding level was going to be. Typically, we receive that funding level that we're allowed to apply for usually in March, early March. OSM was, for whatever reason, delayed this year. We actually did get the final number yesterday afternoon. So it's not reflected on the board packet, but it's actually the same. So no need to make any changes other than to remove that asterisk and actually make that the final number for our grant application this year. So really nothing else you'll see as part of the projects that are in your board packet will change. We're not going to have to delete any projects or make any significant changes on how that funding is distributed across the various projects. But you'll see in our grant request, our project costs are about $1.6 million. And that includes, I believe, 12 projects. You'll see in the grant packet, and I'll actually scroll down here to our overall chart with the projects on there. It's a little bit small. This should be in your packet also, so you can also look at that in a little more detail. But you'll see we have 2 coal projects that we're moving forward with this year in our grant, the El Paso County Coal Legacy Project. And this is a project located kind of on the eastern side of Colorado Springs in some areas where there was historic coal mining. There's a number of subsidences that are occurring, and then there's also high wall that we'd like to address. The Walson coal mine is down, or Walson coal mine project is down in Huerfano County, just to the west of Walsenburg. And so there's a number of vertical openings and I believe some horizontal entries that we're looking to safeguard in that area. So those projects total only about $100,000 each of SMACRA funds that we're requesting for those projects, but a total number of about 18 physical safety hazards that we'll be addressing. So then we have a number of other projects listed in our grant. All these are what are considered non-coal or hard rock related projects. And we're allowed to use our OSM funds, even though they're provided through taxes on coal production, we're allowed to use those funds on hard rock related safety closures if our governor requests the use of those funds for that purpose, which we do every year. Governor signs that And then we request that OSM allow us to use those coal-related funds to close hard rock-related problems. So we have, let's see here, 9 different non-coal related projects. We have quite a few in Boulder. This has really been a focus for us over the last probably 5 to 6 years, based on not only the number of features that are still remaining to be addressed in Boulder County, but also based on that encroachment of suburbia into that mountain area there. So we get a lot of exposure to these dangerous features by the public just based on accessibility. And so it's been really a pretty strong focus for us. We've also have a very strong and ongoing partnership with Boulder County, specifically where they provide some funding to address features that are actually on properties that they manage. So we have a cost share agreement with Boulder County where they split the cost of closure with us. So from our standpoint, that is an area we want to work in because we obviously have a willing partner to provide some additional funding and then also access for those properties. So you'll see on the Twin Sisters project, we have Boulder County as one of our financial partners. And then you'll also notice we have quite a few projects where we partner with the Forest Service. And so we do project development work in these areas that crosses both private and federally managed lands. And so we have a strong and ongoing partnership with both the Forest Service and the Bureau of Land Management, where they provide additional funds to us kind of as they cost share to supplement our OSM funds on features that are actually on properties that they manage. So you'll typically see a lot of projects where we have Forest Service partnership or BLM, and those are ones we like to move forward with in our grant because we do have additional funds coming from them to supplement our existing OSM. So it does allow us to leverage a lot more dollars on those projects and provides a benefit to them because our contracting process is pretty smooth. And so for them to address those safety hazards on their property or property they manage, it would be pretty time consuming and difficult. So they really use us as kind of that contracting mechanism and then executing the project with our project managers. So you see a number of partnerships on there in Boulder County, Mineral Mountain, Switzerland Park and Twin Sisters all have Forest Service as one of our partners. And then the United Empire is a smaller project that's all on private lands. Some other ones you'll see there, we're also working quite a bit in Clear Creek and Gilpin County. That was the focus of our project early on, or of our program early on in its existence. So right now, kind of in that Clear Creek and Gilpin County, we have a lot of projects that are trying to wrap up some of those areas where we weren't able to either get landowner consent in the past, or we're just far enough off the beaten path that we didn't know about those things. So we have a few features remaining in kind of that Clear Creek and Gilpin County that we'll be focusing on in the Ponderosa project. And then we have a couple of projects in Chaffee County. You'll notice on there, some of you may be familiar with where the Madonna mine is, just off of Monarch Pass. As you're driving up the pass there, we have a couple of features that are located kind of around that Monarch mine that are very attractive in terms of visually appealing for folks to come and visit. And so we're going to be working to address those sites on private property there. Bog Grizzly, also in Chaffee County. And then we have a project in Gunnison and then one in San Miguel County. And so we try and typically develop our projects across Colorado so that we're spreading the funding out to various counties, also a function of where our project managers are working at the time. But you'll see, and you probably have seen over the last couple of years, a strong focus on Boulder County, just because we have that ongoing agreement and the number of mine features and public access in that area. So you can kind of see the breakdown on here of our grant projects, what the total is. So the total SMACA request for actual project cost is $895,000. And then you'll see we're leveraging about $332,000 as part of that SMACA funding. So our total project cost 1.2, including our potential financial contribution. And then you can see down there below, we have our NEPA and cultural costs. This has become a pretty significant component of our project work. Because we're receiving federal funds and expending federal funds on this work, we're required to comply with the NEPA process. Through that NEPA process, we have to do T&E species evaluations for each one of our projects. And then one of the big aspects of what we have to do now are cultural evaluations as a result of Section 106. So that's a pretty significant cost to us. You'll see, I think we have almost almost $500,000 worth of cultural costs that are required to get clearance from the State Historic Preservation Office prior to us moving forward with those projects. So
you don't need to, so that's still done and approved at the state level though.
it is actually, it's a little bit complicated. We provide the cultural resource inventory survey work as part of our package that goes to OSM for approval. OSM has delegated for us to consult with the State Historic Preservation Office on all our work as to whether or not there'll be significant impact associated with the work we're doing. So that is addressed on the state level, but then OSM approves our request for an authorization to proceed with expending those federal funds based on what the State Historic Preservation Office says with respect to our impact. So our goal on all of these sites is to have no significant impact on any cultural resources. And so we try and select closure methods that reduce the potential impact either visually or actually physically to any of the historic aspects of a site. In most cases, those sites are not significant from a historical standpoint. And so there's not a lot of restrictions, but we still have to go through the analysis process to arrive at that point where we can say, hey, these are not significant or culturally important related mines. And if there is one that does have, you know, some kind of cultural significance, we have to select our closure method to ensure that we don't have an impact to that feature.
So most of that NEPA cost is subcontractors.
It is. We do have an in-house archaeologist that can work on some of these projects, but she's also responsible for kind of managing all of them. And so she'll do the occasional project kind of in-house for us, but for the most part, that is contracted services. So we have 3 different cultural contractors that we currently have right now to do this type of work, and we have an RFP or an RFQ every 5 years to secure new cultural contractors.
What would be
Can you just
examples
introduce
of
yourself and you ask questions, please, or not?
Stigmeyer? What would be examples of cultural impact? I'm having a hard time imagining. Just it's a pretty mine everybody likes looking at, and it's gone away. I mean,
I'll admit sometimes I ask the same question, so that's an excellent question. I'll say that in general, the sites have some type of cultural significance based on their connection to important people, important events, important places. And so changing the physical characteristics of the site. So one of the closure methods we like to use, because it's pretty inexpensive, is backfill. So if we have a vertical mine opening, we have a waste rock pile adjacent to it, we're going to put the waste rock pile back in the vertical opening to reduce the hazard. A lot of times that waste rock pile creates a culturally significant aspect or view for that mine. And so as our cultural resource inventory folks, our historians will say, you can't use that waste rock pile as part of your mitigation for that mine feature. So then we have to select a different closure type that doesn't impact the waste rock pile. So we may have to do a steel grate or use polyurethane foam or something else that doesn't have an impact on the surrounding visually appealing aspect of the site. And I'm probably not characterizing it with the right words from a cultural and historical standpoint, but generally that's the idea, is when you impact something that changes how the site looks from somebody viewing it from below or something like that, then that could create a significant impact to its cultural significance.
Mr. Baker, asking the question, these are all closed for safety reasons. I mean, that's the main reason you're doing it. It's kind of peculiar that you get opposition to doing something that would make the public more safe. Then I have a dumb question because I'm new to the board. Who is OSM?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's the Office of Surface Mining, Reclamation and Enforcement.
And that's a federal agency?
They're within the Department of Interior.
And how much revenue do you get from coal? I mean, is that a significant part of this?
It is. So as I mentioned before, the fee-based grants that this grant is based on that we receive each year from OSM are partially based on taxes collected from production. So every ton of coal that's mined in Colorado gets taxed based on whether it's underground, surface, or lignite, which I don't think we have any lignite mines. And so they get taxed at a different rate based on every ton of coal that they produce. That tax gets paid to the feds, so Office of Surface Mining, and then they redistribute 50% of that tax back to the state in which it was collected.
But as coal mining is on the decrease, correct, in Colorado? Your revenue stream is also in jeopardy.
It certainly is. There's an interesting aspect in SMACRA that provides for a minimum funding level for abandoned mine land programs. And so this is intended to address that eventuality, or for a state that doesn't have a lot of production. So the minimum program funding level set in SMACRA is $3 million. So we are a minimum program state right now because we don't produce enough coal to get us over the threshold of a minimum program funding level. So yes, the revenue stream associated with coal production is certainly dropping, but thankfully within SMACRA, there's a built-in kind of basement level funding that we receive. So we are at that basement level funding, and what happens within the Office of Surface Mining is obviously our coal production this year only amounts to I think it's about $600,000 of that total 3 million. And so the Office of Surface Mining makes up the difference from the Treasury.
And these mines that you're closing for safety reasons are mines, I'm sure, that are very old. They're you know, way before, what was it, 83 or 84 when we started funding how we close mines. How big is the total need for that? I mean, in my mind, it's huge, but maybe I'm wrong.
You're actually quite right. It is huge. I think the number that gets thrown around quite often in Colorado is about 23,000 abandoned mines across the state.
So you're just messing around, really. I mean,
Some people would say.
but I mean, we're not addressing the problem. We're just kind of putting Band-Aids on where it's visual. I mean, if you're driving
There's
down,
definitely an aspect to that, yes.
if you're driving down I-70 and you see a mine that is open and you say, okay, well, you know, let's work on that mine because it's an eyesore. But there are so many more mines in the state of Colorado that are safety hazards.
You're not wrong.
Okay, all right.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Redmond, so I've dealt with the SHPO in my career. And so it's sort of interesting, how do you come up with the same thing that makes something historically attractive or important to the SHPO is the same thing that makes it an attractive nuisance for the public typically? So is that like an ongoing battle, or how does that, you know, I mean, is it?
I wouldn't say it's a battle. I mean, it's certainly a challenge that we have to work within for our work. I mean, and we've adapted our program to address the SHPO's concerns with respect to historical significance.
I mean, but you always have a solution. I mean, is that the question is, if they tell you can't use the spoils pile, then there's some other way to do it. I mean, to address his question about the ultimate thing is public safety, I guess.
For sure, and that's, you know, our highest priority. That's why we're doing the work, is public safety. But there's generally an alternative that's acceptable as a closure type on a site. And we can go down the rabbit hole since we have time. But the way SHPO works, I mean, SHPO there's a consultation process. So you say, here's what we want to do. You know, SHPO reviews that, they make a determination and they provide that back. There's not a requirement within NEPA or even Section 106 that the federal agency that's requesting the consultation, that they accept SHPO's recommendation. It's not a requirement. They're not authoritative with that respect. They tell you what is acceptable or what would result in a cultural impact.
Right.
And the Office of Surface Mining can say, you know what, we appreciate your opinion, but we're going to authorize moving forward with whatever project we have proposed. So there is an alternative. I'll say that doesn't happen very often. Generally, they're going to defer to the expertise at SHPO to say, hey, this is significant. You need to come up with an alternative closure method, or you can also do what's called mitigation work. So if you were to damage a cultural resource, then you can provide some kind of cultural resource benefit in some other way, much like a wetlands kind of trading thing where you damage a wetland, you build another one over here. You can do something similar with cultural resources. And there are circumstances where.
Have you bought any plaques?
We've developed some, signage in
Yeah.
some locations, and that can function as an alternative cultural resource for folks, or kind of as mitigation. So there are alternatives. I mean, it can pose a challenge to our program and can raise the cost, because we try and select the most cost-effective and effective closure method available. Well, sometimes if we can't do a backfill, if that's both most cost-effective and effective for addressing the hazard, and we have to use something like, say, polyurethane foam, that means we don't have to use as much waste rock. Polyurethane foam is pretty expensive. So what would have been maybe a $2,000 closure now is a $5,000 closure or something. So there are economic impacts to selecting alternative closure methods in some cases.
I just have one more question. Is that the only revenue stream for inactive mines? Or is that the only fund?
It's not, and actually, I can run through our funding real quick if you'd like. That may answer the question in more detail. So there's we have the Office of Surface Mining Reclamation and Enforcement. They provide us 2 different grants now. So we have what's called our fee-based grant, which is what I'm kind of discussing today in front of you. That's based on those fees collected on coal production. After passage of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, we also received a new funding stream through Office of Surface Mining to address coal-related hazards. So it was restricted to only coal-related, both physical and environmental hazards within Colorado. But that funding stream is pretty significant. So that's about $10 million for the next 15 years. So we've already received 2 of those grants. Our focus with that funding is really on, obviously it has to be on coal-related problems, but the big areas that we're focusing on are coal mine fires within Colorado, because of those are very expensive, and based on the location and the climate, they have the potential to have significant impact with respect to wildfire ignition. So big focus for us from a safety hazard standpoint. We're also doing some subsidence related work. So I think we've been before you in the past and mentioned, there's a number of areas in Colorado that have communities built over historic coal mining. And in those instances, there are subsidence related concerns that crop up over time. And so our goal is to spend some of that money on addressing subsidence issues in, say, Colorado Springs, Boulder, and Weld counties. Additionally, we're focusing on safety, like mine opening, addressing hazardous mine openings within coal within those funds. So those are 2 of our biggest kind of consistent funding streams from a federal level. So that's about $13 million of funding we receive from Office of Surface Mining to address both coal and non-coal related problems. So we also receive other federal funding. I kind of mentioned our partnerships with Forest Service, BLM. We also have a partnership with Department of Energy right now to assist with addressing what are called their defense-related uranium mines, which are historically producing uranium mines where ore was hauled to the processing facilities as part of the Atomic Energy Commission's work to build bombs. So we are working with Department of Energy. We receive I think it's about $800,000 each year to work with them to address physical safety hazards, and most of that work is on the western slope. And so I mentioned Forest Service, BLM. We also have in the past worked with the EPA and received funding to address some environmental related problems, but for the most part, we work through the health department, our state level health department, to actually address those issues. So the funding kind of goes from EPA to the health department and back to us. So that's another funding stream that we use. That's really for, not really so much mine drainage, but mine waste contamination related issues. And then we also receive severance tax funding. So right now we receive about 1.2 million out of the severance tax operational fund within DNR to work on mine related problems within Colorado. So we try and split that work up for that funding up to focus on kind of two big areas. So non-coal related problems. So hard rock problems, since most of our OSM funding is directed to coal, we really try and use that severance tax to address kind of the other side of the coin, which is hard rock. And then we also use that funding to address environmental water quality problems on hard rock sites, because we can't use any of that OSM money to address environmental issues on hard rock sites. So it's kind of a complicated web of different funding that we receive and then allocate to those different problems across Colorado.
Mr. Baker, again, so if I understand this, about $15 million is what about 14, $15 million is what you have. And then you negotiate with various other agencies. It could be a county, it could be different, land management, you name it. And then you negotiate as best you can, right, to try to share the cost in that to maximize the spend. And then you manage the work, is that correct?
Correct. So we both design the project and then manage the work.
I guess what I'm kind of coming to is, I don't see this as really meeting the need. I mean, I see this as, it's important, it's very important work. So that, I think it's far more important than we're funding. I think as a state, we should be funding it more because of the safety issues.
I don't disagree with you. I mean, I am very thankful that the state does fund through severance tax what we currently receive in 1.2. I'll say a lot of other Western states don't have that same funding stream. And so places like Nevada, Arizona, California, Oregon, Washington, that have pretty significant hard rock problems, in most of those states, their funding stream is either zero or maybe a couple $100,000 a year. So relative to other Western states, Colorado does a pretty good job, but certainly, we could use more.
Well,
funding.
You talked about addressing those mines that are visible. We're an outdoor state. I mean, we got people, my God, climbing all over this state. And what I'm concerned about are the mines that are not visible, because that's the real safety issue.
Sure.
Is somebody goes off in a mine that's, 5 miles from nowhere, they're not going to find them. That's if they get in trouble.
It's a concern, and our project managers do a really good job of finding features. We have a number of different technologies we use to help with finding things that are kind of off the beaten path or in heavily timbered areas. We use LiDAR as a tool to assist with identifying those mine features. And then, interestingly, there are a number of different social media sites throughout Colorado that post on a continuing basis their exploration of abandoned mines, et cetera. And so we try and follow those to identify those sites and address those before they become a concern. Many of those social media sites have caught on to our observation of that, and so they curtail any discussion of location. But surprisingly, we've been able to identify a few of those just based on some of the photos. So we use the tools that we have at our fingertips to try and address one of your concerns, which is those ones that are farther away that we know are receiving publicity But there's always gonna be some that we don't know about, don't find until something happens, and that's,
I just think what you do is extremely important. And, you know, I thank you for doing it, because I think it's a big issue in our state. Like I said, we crawl all over this state, and some of these mines are a real hazard. I bet there's mines you don't even know about.
oh, I can guarantee you that for sure. But no, and surprisingly, we'll come to sites that are well off any trails, roads, et cetera, and you'll see evidence of visitation at just about every site we go to. So even though, like you mentioned, they seem far away and unknown to most, there's likely somebody who stumbled across it at some time. So it is certainly a focus for our program, and I appreciate your comments, because I think it is timely, and it is a consideration, you know, on the national level right now too, for additional funding for states to address hard rock related problems. And so it's not gone unnoticed on a national level. And so hopefully here in the next 2, 3, maybe 4 years, there'll be a similar funding stream to the Office of Surface Mining's work with respect to coal, but they'll have now something focused more on hard rock related problems, since that is such a big issue for Colorado and other Western states.
Stiglmeyer, I have a completely different question area. Because I had experiences recently with bats, and I was thinking, we've created caves essentially, and then are you finding that there are threatened and endangered bats living in these old mines?
So I don't believe we have any T&E bat species.
Oh,
At least not currently, but we do address, I mean, part of our work is to address bat use and bat access for all of those features that potentially have habitat. So if my slideshow had been available, you probably could have seen, I think I had one slide in there of, on a horizontal entry, we construct what are called bat access grates that have slots that allow bats to ingress and egress from those sites. And so sites that we identify as potential habitat, or we know we've identified, you know, you see bat guano, something very specific to say, hey, there's bats using this, we'll construct a closure that takes into account bat access. Or if there's no way we can construct a bat accessible closure because of the conditions at the site, we'll actually put what's called an exclusion on the feature so that bats can leave, but they can't come back in. So surprisingly, bats will crawl. So if you put like a chain link over an opening, something like that, in advance of doing a closure, the bats will see that, fly down to the ground, and then crawl underneath it, but they won't come back in. So, you know, we don't want to close in any bats in our work. So we do things to accommodate bat access and the potential bat habitat with our closures. Hopefully that addresses your concern or question.
Interesting. I just saw thousands of bats in Austin that are living under a bridge. Created habitat for them.
Bats are important.
Very important. And
Lives matter.
yeah, so we certainly take into consideration bats as part of our closure work and try and select closure methods that account for that. Feel free to fire away with more questions. I think for once I actually have time. I think the last couple of times I've been before you, there's been a pretty full board agenda, so I haven't had an opportunity to respond to much with respect to questions. So I won't run through each of those projects. I kind of mentioned them already. They were in your board packet, kind of a fuller description of what the project entails, total cost. So I guess we'll go back up to the top here, and kind of the final ask is for board approval of our grant submission for that total dollar amount, recognizing that that is now final on that dollar amount.
I move that we approve the dollar amount.
Motion by Baker, second.
Second by Nelson.
Discussion?
Thought you were gonna ask for twice as much.
I'm sorry.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, hearing none, we have approved the amount for, I believe, $2,829,000 as noted in the presentation. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for that presentation and for all the additional information, context. Keeping everybody safe. Do we have a discussion item number 10, staff information or education?
Yes, we do.
You do, all right. Mr. Means.
Good morning, everybody. For the record, this is Russ Means representing the division and staff. Today we have a discussion item on a couple of issues and stuff that we would like some feedback from the board on. One of them is something that we kind of touched on today, and that is temporary cessation 2 request. Under our current process, TC1s, you'll see that we post those notices and stuff on our agenda, on the tentative agenda. And if we get no comments or any objections or anything, TC1 will go to consent agenda. When we were going through TC rulemaking and stuff back in 2021, 22, there was a big deal and stuff about TC, and we were touching a little bit on that and stuff and that. We got a definition for production and other things there. But today we saw where we had 3 TC2 requests and that where staff made a presentation on those issues and stuff. But what we would like to ask or get some feedback on is if the board would entertain the idea of for TC2s, just like TC1s, we post that on our tentative agenda. If we do not get any comments or objections, we would like to have your approval and stuff to move those to consent. And with that, you know, there is a list of requirements and stuff under TC2 that are similar to TC1, where we have to do an inspection. We have to look at violations we have to look at the financial warranty. All those things and stuff are the same things and stuff that we do for TC1. The one thing and stuff we do is get a memo from the operator and stuff stating the reasons for the request for TCs and that, so that would be there. So if all the requirements are met and there's no mitigating circumstances and no objections, then we're asking for your feedback and stuff. Would it be to maximize your time and stuff, okay, and stuff to move that consent agenda? EPSs are always here and stuff to do the questions and answers and stuff, so that's not the issue and stuff. It's just going through making a presentation and stuff, and that might be a little bit of a time saver and stuff. Today wasn't a big deal, but in some cases and stuff, and that it would be valuable time and stuff on more busy hearings. So we're just asking for your feedback on that and your opinions on that. So
I have a quick question.
Yes,
This is Redmond. During cessation, do the inspections continue? But how does that, I mean, are they really, I mean, some of these are long enough where you'd have, I mean, you'd have degradation or erosion or things like that happen.
it's they're still subject to inspections, especially if it's a DMO, if it's a designated mining operation permit and stuff. They still have to be inspected annually. So we go and take a look at those no matter what. And if there is a potential for impacts, the operator is still required to do maintenance and everything else and stuff there. It's and that they're just not in production. So we would be out on inspections in our normal rotation or as required and stuff by the active rules.
Question, Nelson. So there's nothing in the process from cessation 1 to cessation 2 from the staffs and in the staffs working with the permitting and there's no other steps added for a second cessation.
The biggest thing and stuff is a statement and stuff of what the operator's intent is. And that, today, it was pretty straightforward, but if there are circumstances that, we feel that the board needs to have a discussion with and stuff, certainly we would bring that forward. Yeah, but a lot of times and stuff, it's economic reasons and that they're not able to move forward and that, so they're asking for that second, timeframe. And that, so the EPSs are talking to the operators and looking at things, and as the one was and stuff, and that there was a circumstance where the TC1 and stuff expired. And then when we were pulled up the file and stuff for review for the and that for an inspection, we noticed the stuff that they were still through annual reports and stuff and that not in production. So we had a discussion with the operator, and that's why within the rules and stuff, we can retroactively place that time frame on there. So that there's not a 2-year free gap, if you will, and stuff there. The 10-year time frame is continuous. Yes, ma'am.
Stiglmeyer, I'm thinking of our previous discussion and safety and imagining one of these mines on public land where I'm sure it's signed, blocked off, or somebody's not supposed to go in there. I'm just thinking of, okay, if you only went once a year, maybe people start exploring that old gold mine. I'm just thinking of safety issues that could come up.
Yeah, if it's a permitted mine and stuff and that they have to have, that's part of the requirements and stuff, and that is their security and everything else, and they certainly have a liability and stuff there for and when for inactive mines, in fact, those prior to 1976, actually, when stuff was when our act came into effect. That's the ones of stuff that the inactive mines and stuff is taking a look at. But for our active mines and stuff there, we take a look at those kind of issues, and that a lot of them are construction materials. So they're pits and stuff as opposed to adits and those kind of things.
No, Wareham, just to comment to that one. I mean, I think really, and this goes back to the conversation that we really worked on with the Hard Rock rules. The difference with temporary cessation is you are still theoretically, you may not be producing something, but you are still in a sense an active mine in terms of an operation. You are a functioning company or owner. You may have something going on in care and maintenance there. To someone driving by, you may have absolutely no idea what the actual status of this mine is. So just so you guys have a picture in your head, there's a very big difference between a mine that is completely non-operational and temporary cessation. What we're really trying to accomplish with temporary cessation, and particularly in that TC2 side of things, is, you know, because of economic circumstances, or we had a lot of these conversations during COVID where all of a sudden it was like, we don't have a workforce, we don't have a demand, this was not part of the plan, but we've got to do something here for a second and just kind of, you know, stop the bleeding a little bit. But that an operator is not using it for the wrong reason to avoid reclamation. So that's the other thing that you're thinking of. You're saying,
Yeah.
you know, and that's where the protection specialists are going in, still having those conversations with the operators, still saying, look, this is a business decision. This is not an avoidance of reclamation. If it's something where you truly feel like we've had no communication with the operator, they haven't submitted their report, they haven't done anything for whatever, then that's where you start going down the path of, you know, revoking the permit, don't operate, don't do any of these things. So I think don't get confused with the intent of a TC2 as being, you know, an inactive mine kind of thing.
Yeah.
There's still the whole host of, you've got to have the signage, you've got to have, you know, an obvious entrance and exit, you've got to be MSHA compliant if you're going to enter the thing. So you would be trespassing if you were to go into that. So that safety piece is done. We're really trying to make sure that this for a business decision, economical decision, and not to sort of elongate past point of reason to avoid the cost of reclamation.
But in terms of information to us, we
Yes.
have to totally rely on staff.
Yes,
I mean, so what you're asking, I think makes a lot of sense.
yes.
It just is commonsensical to say, yeah, you should, if there's no red flags, you should just approve it.
Yeah. Sorry, Brendan, again, sorry about the educational, but are there insurance requirements for the permit? Are there liability insurance?
Yeah, Russ means it's yes, the operator is still fully responsible for maintaining their financial warranty.
Yeah.
They also have to have their, other insurances and stuff like that are all in play and stuff there, because if something happens, they're liable there. So, in most of these sites, somebody's driving by and that, and then, Chairman, Wareham noted and stuff, if there's mitigating circumstances, we're gonna know about that, and that's why we would bring that to the board. We wouldn't even think twice about that. If there's something and stuff that is out of the norm, or if we feel somebody's just trying to circumvent their responsibilities and stuff, that's where, bringing them before the board and stuff and that for that conversation and stuff would be important for us, because that also gives the leverage and stuff to get things done as much as anything else, so.
That's pretty tough sledding sometimes, though. I mean, if you still have all the insurance expenses.
Yeah.
I mean, you're still open.
Yeah.
Even though you're not producing revenue.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a business decision to ask for a TC.
Yeah, and yeah, Russ means again, 99% of the time that is correct. So. If you're comfortable with that, then we can, we'll try to make that happen and stuff like that on a more regular basis then. Yes, no,
They need a vote on that?
I don't think you need a vote. It's just just some guidance and stuff, is fine and stuff. So, and then, the second issue and stuff that I wanted to discuss with the board and stuff, is about dams and reservoirs. So, from time to time, we get into some controversies when it comes to dams and reservoirs. The division and stuff, we understand the benefits, to the community for these types of projects, and certainly we certainly support them all. And believe it or not, we really try to stay out of the way, in that. But there are instances and stuff in that where there's lines crossed and stuff, and we have to get involved in stuff even when we don't necessarily want to. Timely article and stuff this week and stuff was on the Chimney Hollow Reservoir project. We're aware of it, and it was on the CBS News and stuff and this is a project and stuff that's west of Loveland, and they're building a big a dam to create a new reservoir and stuff there. And in the article and stuff, they note that this is probably would be one of the largest mining operations of the state of Colorado. I would maybe take a little bit of umbrage with that, but the point and stuff is this is a project and stuff that is moving forward. It's been planned for since the 90s, and we don't have a permit on it. And the reason we don't is because all of the activities and stuff that are involved in building this reservoir are within the footprint of what the reservoir is going to be. And there's no material of leaving this site. It's all being done under this project, and more importantly, or just as importantly, is that there's other jurisdictions and stuff that are involved in it. Division of Water Resources, there's dam engineers, everything else stuff. So we're not involved in that. And for a very good reason. It's just another layer of regulation and stuff that would just doesn't seem to make common sense. But where we have a problem and stuff is sometimes we get isn't mining questionnaires, and that somebody will come reach out to us and say, hey, do we need a permit? And we'll take a look at that with all of the information, and they cross a certain line with us and stuff where we have to say we think you need a permit. And so we just had a site here recently and stuff where a reservoir was being expanded, and that deepened and cleaned out. And it was actually a grant and stuff from the CWCB board, and that to get this done. And we actually got two Is It Minings, because the first questionnaires, the first one had the information, and we said you need to have a permit because of some of the things that I'll touch on here in a minute. Then we got a second one that didn't have much different information, and we made that second determination. So what happened and stuff is, under the original contract and stuff with CWCB, is that they were supposed to remove this material, deepen it, widen it, but then they were moving it across a road and stuff, and they put all this material and stuff on 60 acres of farmland. was 600,000 cubic yards of material. So in the contract that was approved by CWCB, it said that they were gonna grade it out and seed it, and that was gonna be that. And if that had been what was contemplated and originally contemplated, we would have probably said, we don't need a permit because CWCB has a performance warranty and a bond and stuff in that, and that's fine. But what happened here and stuff, and that is the contractor said that they were gonna sell this material or get rid of it. So we're introducing 600,000 cubic yards of material into the market where we have permitted operators and that are trying to make a living. And these guys can, you know, sell it for whatever they want to, give it away, whatever. So, so when we told them they needed a permit, the division got attacked on a website and stuff and social media, on a social media platform and stuff, saying we were overreaching and everything else. But the line and stuff there is that we had a complaint that came in, but it was the act of putting that material into the market and stuff that would adversely affect our permittees. So we get tangled up in these, like I said before, and we've had them across the state and they've been in front of the board. We had one from down south of Pueblo here about a year or two ago. In that kind of the same scenario, they were cleaning out a reservoir and expanding it. That wasn't the issue. The issue was, 500 or 600 trucks a day going down the county, paved county roads and stuff, and giving that material or selling that material to somebody else. And so that's where we drew the line. So what staff would like to do is to draft a statement memo and that we can attach to Is It Mining and put on our website and stuff that kind of clarifies where that line is. What we want to do and stuff is we'll create this draft and I'll bring it back to the board and stuff and that for their review and that so that we kind of have a better understanding, the public has a better understanding and stuff of exactly where those limits and stuff are. So, the things and stuff that we always look at is, is it going to stay on site? Is the disturbance underwater? Is it covered by other jurisdictions? Where we take a look at things and stuff and start to look at a permit, a requirement is with their shipping material off site, selling it or getting some kind of compensation for that. And of course, per board policy and our own policy, if we get a complaint, then we're required to go out and do an inspection. So I think that if we put something like that in writing and put that out there so that people looking at it and stuff and that understand and stuff, at least where the first cut is, if you will, then that might help alleviate some of the conversations and stuff that we have that sometimes don't turn out very pleasantly. And with that, if we do that, then I think that helps. And in our Is It Mining questionnaire and our determination letters that we go back, there is a set statement in there that says that if somebody doesn't agree with us, they can come to you and get a declaratory order and stuff that says that they are or not. And staff always looks at that and that sometimes we help foster that. We go, yeah, you know what, this doesn't, by act and rule in general and stuff and that, you might need a permit, but because of the circumstances, we would help, bring that before the board and stuff for a conversation, and let you guys make that decision. And that, and there may be other opportunities and stuff in that where somebody just doesn't agree with us at all. And they want to come before you and have that argument, and that's fine by us. You always have that final say. But I think that if we're able to do a memo that we can attach to the Is It Mining questionnaires and stuff, at least and stuff, and that we'll have a clear point where our position is and stuff moving into that conversation. So if you guys are agreeable to that, then we will come back with a draft on either next month or maybe June, because May looks like it might be a little bit busy. We can have a discussion on that draft, or if you're fine with it, we'll work with AG and stuff. We'll get that done and stuff and just do it. It's up to you guys and stuff whether you want to review it or not.
Stiglmeyer. It seems like part of the solution needs to be just working with CWCB on these projects so that it's not a secondary problem.
The Russ means again, Michael, Director Cunningham and myself, we actually did meet with CWCB on this and kind of explained the stuff where our lines were and stuff. And like I said, the information that was provided to us and they understood and stuff as the original contract and stuff was fine. It was when the contractor, after the contract and stuff was signed and stuff, decided to try to to do other things and stuff with it. That's where the switch and stuff was. But the big thing and stuff is we opened up that line of communication so that if somebody comes in on one of these grants and stuff and has a discussion with them, they will say, you know, you need to, at a minimum, at least reach out to us and stuff via email and have a discussion and stuff on it. So.
Question for clarification. So it's a complaint. Yes, you always follow up on that, but so is it really the selling of the material? So if they took this off-site, we're running 500 trucks a day to a, say it was a county site for stockpile, and they'd use that to build net spec, so use it to build a road at a later date, that would not trigger it? Or is it when they sell it?
The transportation and selling of it, part of the big
Is it
thing
the
and stuff about the
transportation or is it the
transportation is because they're using public roads and there's an impact to the public and there's no public notice or conversations about that. And so that's part of our permitting process and stuff, as well as the county, sometimes the counties aren't even aware that some of this stuff is occurring. So that's part of our process and stuff there. And that is the notification and stuff and the review of that to ensure that everybody's on the same page.
Okay, so.
Baker, it also doesn't seem fair that someone could put the material on the market. He's not permitted, but we've got 2 or 3 permitted mines in the area that we agreed that they can operate and run a business, and then we undermine their business with lesser cost or free. And free is a tough price to beat.
And Russ means again, and that's always been one of the considerations and stuff there and stuff, and that is the equitable feasibility and stuff in that for an operator who does everything right, has those permits, has a bond in place, and that versus anybody and stuff that's, you know, doing activities and out. We've had illegal mining operations come before you and stuff and that they're, you know, they're giving it away for free, quote unquote, but yet they've got a huge pit and that. So those are kind of the same principle in that is that it's not fair for that to happen. We don't, you know, it's one thing and stuff if say somebody has a grading permit from the county and they're doing construction work and preparing a site and stuff for homes or business or whatever. That's covered under a different jurisdiction, different reclamation, different final land use issues and stuff that we don't get involved in that. And common sense, you know, if a rancher's cleaning out a pond and he's got 2 or 3 truckloads and he takes it down to his neighbor or something like that, we're not gonna, in general and stuff that we're not gonna, you know, we're gonna say you should have a permit, but don't do any more than what you're doing right there. And that, I mean, but we take a look at that and try to interject a little bit of common sense into where we can. So I guess the question is and stuff is, would you like to see a draft of that and that come before you and stuff in that? And I'm hinting here and stuff that next in May, we're going to be very busy. And so we'll have something and stuff for you at the June hearing and stuff for review. We'll put it in the board packet so that when we have our discussion item, we can discuss it a little bit more. So, and with that, Madam Chair, that's what I have for discussion today.
Thank you. Okay. Did we have any public comment? We do not. Okay, no public comments, no need for executive session, correct?
Correct.
Okay, well, with that, the meeting for April 17th is adjourned. Really appreciate all the education and discussion and questions and the work of the staff as usual and make it really efficient meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. So
It's, I have here by 11, but it usually is between 10 to.
Yeah.
So.
We do have lunch on the way somewhere, so if you want to stay or not. Okay. That's not even bad yet.
In terms of.